This year has raced by. There's still a pile of things to get done, plus you need to fit in parties, team lunches, and a strategic planning day. How do you stay positive and stress-free during such a hectic period? Eleanor Shakiba is here to share some tips. Well, Eleanor, I'm sure many HR professionals are already feeling what we're going to talk about in this particular program. So as we lead up to Christmas, what are some typical scenarios for this build-up of stress at the end of the year?
Well, a very typical one is the situation where you've got a major project to deliver and you suddenly realise time is running out. It's got to be done by year end. But suddenly there's a whole range of social commitments, there's all these last minute things that are coming up, and you're thinking, I just don't have time to do things like going to the team planning day. And that's a sign that stress is building and that perhaps you need to sit back and work out how to get through the end of the year successfully.
So in your experience, what causes this sort of end of year pressure and stress?
So very often it's simply poor planning and prioritisation. So if you've had a project for the last 6 months but you've left it until December to really get your teeth into it, then it's quite likely you're going to have a lot of pressure rising as you try to deliver. But secondly, there might be elements of lack of self-awareness, you're not aware of what you're doing to contribute to the problem, and in some cases just simple lack of assertiveness, the inability to say no. If you're saying yes to every party invitation that comes in, then you're not going to be able to focus on getting the job done. So you might need to learn how to say no to some of the lower priority social events.
I guess one of the conflicts that some HR professionals have is that, you know, as these parties come up, they'll be invited to quite a few of them.
Yep.
And in fact, they sense that there's a need for them to actually be there because they are the HR people who are involved in relationships and building teams and all those things. Mm-hmm. So do you think this is an added pressure for many HR people?
Quite possibly, but it doesn't mean they have to be there for the entire event. So it might be more a matter of working out how you can put in a strategic appearance, but then get back to the task that you need to be doing. Or it might be a matter of saying, out of all the teams that I'm working with this year, what are my top 3 priority ones to actually be visible with at the end of the year celebrations? So although there might be a sense of pressure, it doesn't mean that you still can't prioritise around those relationships.
And in your experience, are some organisations, is the pressure on some organisations coming up to Christmas much more than on others?
Yes, quite typically organisations that have projects and a model of working around projects, there'll be a lot more pressure. In other organisations, there's actually a wind down period and people are actually beginning to relax. So they're going, what's the point of this particular video session? So different industries will have different approaches to the end of year workload. That's definitely sure.
So how can we deal with this as the days tick by now towards Christmas? What practically can we do?
So one of the things is just to sit down and take half an hour to write a list of what really needs to be done. If you're thinking everything needs to be done before the end of the year, you need to do a reality check and say it's not going to happen. So what are the top 2 or 3 things that I really need to get done? And start planning so this doesn't happen next year. So put your diary in action now, put into your calendar key events like holidays and time out for yourself, but also those key business events like your team planning time, major project time, and make sure that you set up so that at the end of next year you're not going to be in the same situation that perhaps you're in now. And set a quota for how many social events you can reasonably go to and learn how to say no. How can you say it in a way that is assertive and polite and maintains a constructive relationship?
So what's one thing that our listeners, viewers, could take away and do practically?
So sit down and think about next week. You're going to start a new way of managing yourself. What is it that you're going to do next week? And put all of that into your calendar. And read the boundary setting chapter in Difficult People Made Easy. If you're someone who doesn't know how to say no, that chapter is going to really help you to be able to do that. And it will be also very helpful for those of you who need to learn how to set limits on how other people infringe on your time.
Great. Eleanor, it's been a great, this is the last of our programs for this year. It's been a great year of learning and exploring, and I've really enjoyed working with you, and wish all our viewers and listeners a very happy Christmas. And do you want to say anything to them in particular?
Thank you very much for joining us this year, and I hope you have a stress-free holiday period, and that we'll see you again in February next year.